Okay, so my presentation is prepared in English. I hope that won't be a problem. We talked in Polish the introduction, but this was planned to be in English. And for the recording for the audience that will be able to watch it later, it might be more convenient. So the single page applications are the go-to standard today when talking about front-end stack. And today I'd like to challenge this idea. The goal of my presentation is also to give you some tips how the front-end can be done better. But first, let me introduce myself. I usually don't like introducing myself, but the story that I'll be sharing in this presentation somehow comes from what I do at my work. So I'm Mateusz Ostafil. I'm SAP Spartacus Technology Evangelist at Devante. And what I do, I provide trainings on Spartacus. I also lead some projects, implementation projects on Spartacus. And I'm also a little bit involved into architecture of front-end. But what is Spartacus that I'm talking about? Spartacus is a set of Angular libraries that allow rapid development of storefronts for SAP Commerce Cloud. So basically, this is some kind of a framework or a tool set for building front ends for e-commerce. And honestly, Spartacus does its job really good, but there is always a but that's something that we will discuss throughout the whole presentation. So we will start this talk with a short e-commerce story, how e-commerce front-end e-commerce project usually go. Then I'll give you a history lesson. I'm not a historian, but I'm really into the history of of computer science and software because it's kind of fascinating how it evolves and develops. And then we will try to answer this question, whether SPAs are a good idea or not. And then we'll talk, can we do any better than that? And in the end, we will have a Q&A, which I'm hoping for. My presentation is not that long. I'm more into the discussion. So you can ask questions on chat, I think already, so that you don't forget, and then we'll try to answer them. So let's start with a story, and this is not any particular story that I've had, but this is a pattern that I've seen already a few times, that clients come in complaining about storefronts, or we did a project and there are some complaints. So don't take it as one example, but this is a pattern that I've seen a few times already. So imagine that a client comes to you and wants to have a new storefront, headless storefront, single page application, modern, and all the fancy stuff. And all the paperwork is done and business analysis is already done. So we get into the designing phase. And the designers design the user interface in the modern component-driven way. The designs are highly interactive. And because of this component-driven way, it helps the developers to develop the single-page application. So the development starts, and your team using Spartacus implement the storefront in less than 6 months, and it's quite short period of time, so to say, and everything is good. The product looks well. The client decides to go live, and there are not many bugs to fix, and sales have increased on the client side. And everyone has lived happily ever after. Well, not really, because a month later or so, the client comes back and shows you these two charts. The one on the left is a screenshot from PageSpeed Insights, and it says that performance of our application is 20. And the next chart is a screenshot from Cloudflare blog post, which says that the page speed has an impact on the conversion. So the client says that is losing money because the front end is not performing well. And a side note here, we have a screenshot from a real site from Zalando. Some random category page on Zalando has performance of 20, but I wasn't involved in building Zalando, and I'm not blaming Zalando at all. This is something, Zalando is just an example of single page application storefront for some big brand. And this is what you could get, what you get on most of single page application based storefronts. So you could open any kind of such an application, and it would get something around 20 or anything in the red zone. So I'm not blaming Zalando here. I'm just saying that this is normal what happens. And actually, if you would try to check the performance of Amazon, which is not a single page application, it would get something between 50 or 80. So they are not hitting even a green zone. So just a side note about this. But anyway, the client does not know that most of the application behave this way, and insists on us to do some improvement to fix this, because he is losing money because of the poor performance of our application. So you and your developers start to work hard to improve this performance. You introduce server-side rendering, caching, lazy loading, inlining critical CSS, reducing CSS, changing the build pipeline to make the JavaScript bundle even more compressed. You compress images, you find a better CDN, you work with DevOps to have a better deployment. And finally, you reach the score 50 in the lighthouse. So the client is still not happy because you have barely reached the yellow zone, and there is a problem, and the finger pointing starts. So you as a developer might finger point on the client because it was the client's idea to go headless and implement single page application storefront, and the client should be aware of the consequences that almost none of the SP single page applications reach green zone in Google Lighthouse. However, the client does not have to be necessarily aware of these technical circumstances. So it might be your role as developer to convince the client that might be not the best idea to hope for such a performance with single page application. Or you could work harder to boost up the performance level even higher. But you also might be blaming Google because of setting such an unrealistic criteria, because as I've said, most of the websites don't reach the green zone, and that's partially true. This is how people should start thinking about the Google Lighthouse metrics and understand the trade-offs between those. But let's, for the sake of this presentation, accept this unrealistic, unfair criteria for now. This is ambitious, so let's be ambitious. But we haven't blamed the designers yet. It was them who designed very interactive user interface with component-driven way. So that pushed us towards choosing the single-page applications. Yeah, but this is actually a good way of designing, and everyone could be blamed here partially. But I think that the culprit here is actually the web, the web standard, and the underlying protocol that we are using. But how shall I blame the web? Because the web is wonderful. We have everything is running on the web or online here now, and why? Because we are doing it wrong. We have probably went a wrong path, or at least we are not doing the web in the way it was meant to be done. So what I'm talking about, let's get on the same page with what is the component-driven user interface. As you are probably familiar, the UIs consist of multiple repeatable elements. Like here we have some tiles with image and text, and these components, repeatable structures can also have some kind of a behavior. So for example, if I would click on this image, it could get larger and gray out the background. So that would be the behavior of this component. And the idea behind the component-driven UI, how I see it, is to encapsulate the look and behavior into one single piece of software. So the components are highly reusable here and there, and they represent what we have on the designs. However, the problem is that the underlying platform that we are using, so the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, they weren't designed to support such a way of thinking about the user interfaces and then designing that, because all these three, they live completely separately. And why is it so? We have to look at the history to understand that. In 1991, HTML was created by Tim Berners-Lee from CERN, and his idea behind that was to is the way of sharing the static scientific documents between the scientists all over the world. So you can watch some talk of Tim Burns that it came from the frustration that he was presented a lot of different documents in different formats, and the documents were interlinked by just saying that look at this up in the other document and so on and so forth. So he used this hyperlink method to link the documents, but that was initially meant to be static, to have static pages, and that's it. And it was for the scientific purposes, so tables with data and some paragraphs with description. Not what we are doing right now. Then 4 years after, JavaScript was created in 10 days, and the initial purpose of JavaScript was just to add a little bit of interactivity to the static documents. And also, the fun fact is that it was the idea of JavaScript was created in Netscape, which was kind of a dying browser. It was meant to boost the popularity of Netscape and not get killed by Internet Explorer. So that was the main idea behind the JavaScript initially. Then a year later, the CSS was created, and as you can see on the timeline, those three were created in different periods and with different purposes. And it worked fine because for some time the web was basically for sharing some static content with a little bit of interactivity of JavaScript. But in 2002, there was the name single page application was coined, and it was actually some kind of R&D or proof of concept project called /./.com, and it was probably, as far as I remember, some computer science student created it just for the sake to check whether it's possible to contain the whole application or whole website in a single file, and that was doable that time. And here you can see a screenshot of this of this application, but it wasn't very useful at that time. Then in 2006, jQuery was created, and just a side note, I've dug and found the old jQuery logo. It's quite cool, but I had to work hard to find which is the old logo. So anyway, jQuery is not something to do with, does not have anything to do with single page application, but it actually empowered the web and moved the web towards immense amount of JavaScript, and more JavaScript was added to the page, and the pages get more and more interactive, so that the amount of jQuery and the way the code was more mangled on the websites pushed the developers to think, can we do any better? So if the most of the web page is controlled by jQuery and the HTML is still also rendered on the server, so why not to move everything to the front end and make it cleaner? And that resulted in 2010s or 2010s in the creation of the first single page application framework. So AngularJS was created at that time, Ember, I think Knockout, and some other which are not known already because have already died. And a few years later, React, Vue, and proper Angular were created. And you see that React was the initial release of React was somewhere in 2013. So it's almost 10 years already with us. And these frameworks got a good traction, and they are used every day. And for the new projects, they are being used. So they are actually quite good, right? Because they improve the user experience, which is the most important thing here when we are talking about the front ends, because they allow for adding a lot of interactivity to our application and it's quite easy to add this interactivity in single page applications. And it also results in a quite high runtime performance. So once the whole application gets loaded to our browser, then navigating between pages and doing some stuff is quite snappy. And something that I've already mentioned, that the component-driven development is in pair with the design. So we have some common language with the designers, and this results also in the cleaner architecture of our application from the code perspective. It also helps the development because the designer designs the component and the developer codes this component, and it's actually faster than the old way. Another thing that SPAs brought to us is the headless or microservice architecture, whatever you call it. And this also renders a lot of benefits. So for example, it helps with scaling, because now we can have separately backend and frontend. And not only that we have separate servers for backend and frontend, it also gives us opportunity that the load that was previously on the backend, we can push that to the clients and distribute this among the clients. So this results in a better performance on the backend. And deployment is also easier than with headless than with monolith, because we don't have to spin up the whole monolith and deploy both together, backend and front end. We can just separately deploy. The single page application basically is just a set of static files which can be served from literally anywhere. And from the project manager's perspective, we can have specialized teams that they highly focus on their topic. So we can have wonderful front-end developers which focus only on the front end, and wonderful back-end developers which focus on the back-end. And that's something that I've already seen throughout my career, that I've seen a lot of front-end developers that were very good front-end developers, but they had very little idea what's happening on the back-end and how actually the internet works and so on. They focused solely on the front-end, and they did a very good job. And with headless approach, we can achieve that we have these two highly specialized teams. They have to, of course, work together, but they focus on their main topic. So it seems that SPAs are a good idea, but unfortunately, there's the other side of the coin, and there's something that we've already mentioned, is the performance ceiling that you will hit with the application, because you're not building pages, you're building application. And before the application starts to run, and it has to be downloaded to the client. So this is some kind of a bottleneck there with the performance. Also, single page applications suffer with issues of search engine optimization and accessibility. The both are actually solvable, but at some cost. So it's some additional work has to be done here. And all in all, the biggest problem with SPA is something that I've already mentioned, that it's a hack. So it's some kind of a workaround from what the browsers and the web was initially meant to be. And this results in quite high complexity of these applications. So the build pipeline of the front-end application can be considered unnecessarily complex. The testing is also not as easy as it was in the backend. I'm not saying it's not doable. It's just complex. Fixing bugs also sometimes might be overly complex. And the thing that I like or hate the most is that we can expect unexpected behaviors with single page applications. And what I'm talking about here is, for example, a common problem with scroll position restoration or history API, because and the thing that makes me anxious is that the web out of the box, the browser out of the box handle history natively, and with the page-driven architecture, we have this working well. But in single-page applications, we have to somehow re-implement this mechanism on the front end on our own. So we are redoing some stuff unnecessarily. What we can also complain about a single page application is resilience. So we mentioned that you have an error in your application, and this could blow up your whole system. So it's not that only one page won't work. It's just the whole application is inaccessible, and that's a problem. With multi-page applications, you can have one page broken and everything, and the rest pages could work fine. And the last problems that I've listed here, there are probably a lot more problems, but the last that I've listed here is the security concern. So with single page application, we serve a massive amount of third-party scripts to the clients, and the client runs these scripts. And you probably remember the issues that were there, about the Faker.js JS library and Colors.js library, where some villain developer has changed the packages to do some nasty stuff. And to be honest, nobody is checking the scripts before publishing to the client, and that's actually not possible to check that, and that causes some security threat. Okay, so let's finally answer the title question. Are SPAs a good idea? Well, it depends. One may say no, that because I've explained to you that this is a hack and this is not what we should be doing. But on the other hand, it just works, and it works well for quite some time now, and nobody is complaining that much about it. But this is funny that in the web everything looks like this, because JavaScript was created only in 10 days to add a little bit of interactivity, and now enterprise applications are running on a server on Node.js. So that's quite interesting that the web works this way, that there are some ideas which then transform into something actually different, but in the end it works nice. But can we do any better? It looks like some wise guys there in the industry have seen the problems that I've listed here already, and started think and work actually on solutions to some of these problems. So now I would like to share with you some research that I've done, what can be done better. So there are React server components which are not, I think they are still experimental, but actually Next.js has embraced that, and React server components move some computation of components to the server. Which results in quite nice performance. And there is a Svelte kit, and I'm not that into Svelte, but this is doing something similar to what React Server Component does. And there, a very interesting thing is a remix. And you might have heard about remix because it has very aggressive marketing over there, which I don't like. But the idea behind remix is quite nice. And they have the idea of bringing you to the roots of the web, but with React. So you're building you are using the web standards as you're supposed to, and you are rendering most of the things on the server, but you write everything in React. I haven't tried it actually. I've just a little bit studied it, and it looks quite interesting. And also interesting thing is that in their documentation they are mentioning that they want people to embrace the web standards and how the web to teach people how the web actually works through the framework. So that's kind of nice. But the thing that okay, the next thing, islands architecture. This is a new trendy term that actually that trendy term that people start to embrace. But actually, this is something that was there from the beginning. So this is, as I see, this is the web from the times of jQuery, but in a more modern and actually cleaner way. That in islands architecture, we are writing the applications as we were, but we add some islands of interactivity on our pages. That also gains on popularity these days. But the thing that caught my attention and is quite interesting is a quick framework. It was created by Miško Hevry, and this is something at very early stage today. But yeah, another JavaScript framework. However, this one is having very different concept from all the others, and it aims at ultra fine-grained lazy loading. What does it mean? It means that it loads the JavaScript only when it's needed and only the amount that it's needed. So when you open a page, you only load like less than 1 kilobyte of JavaScript. And then, for example, you start an interactivity, you click on some kind of an input, then JavaScript is loaded and only amount to handle this input. So that's kind of interesting concept. However, all of these that I've listed here, they rely heavily on the server. So it's like pushing back front end to the back end. So we are with the history of single page applications, we took some responsibility from the back end and put it on the front end, and now we are putting it back. So it requires, the problem here is that it requires from the developers to have some understanding of the back end and how the whole web works, which is actually good, but introduces more complexity. So maybe we could start thinking about something completely different. So if the web is broken and it does not fits into our requirements well, then maybe we shall create a new protocol, new standard. And that could be a good idea because this standard could fit the requirements that the users have currently. However, it would take ages to implement, and probably in the end, if it would be implemented, the requirements would change by then, and we will be back to the square one that we have with the web. So what I propose and suggest is to have more evolutionary approach and bet on the web standards. Because the frameworks that we use and the popular frameworks and the way we implement web applications influences the consortium that is behind the web standards, and some of the ideas there and some of the features there are being implemented in the browsers natively, and that's something that in the long run may help with all these problems. However, this is quite of a lengthy process to get this implemented, but the people behind it, they know what they are doing because they are doing it for like 30 years now. So that's all about my talk, and I hope you enjoyed it. And my goal was to make you start thinking about the single page application, not as this is something for granted or as this is a go-to solution, but think about it a little bit more. And if you want to do more research, you can scan this QR code, which would direct you to my presentation. And on the next slide, you will find the links to some resources. Now I'm looking for a nice Q&A. I would like to answer questions. But if you would like to contact me directly, then on the first slide of my presentation, or actually the second slide of my presentation, you will find a Twitter handle and my LinkedIn account. So you can reach me directly. And now let's go back to the studio for the Q&A session.